You know what blows my mind, Grant?
What's that, Tanner?
When you look at these top tier college teams, I'll take the University of Florida for an example. In the first half last night, they were shameful. They were dreadful. They still won the first half by 2 points. They come out in the second half. They light the world on fire. They dominate Maryland. But I just don't know how teams can look so bad and then so good in the course of the same game. Because other sports, you just don't get that.
Well, I think that kind of speaks to what we're watching. These are still 18, 19-year-old amateurs. These are teams of players that have just been thrown together with NIL and the transfer portal, people who have no chemistry. Coaches these days, if you just make the tournament, then you're going to get a coaching job somewhere else. So there's all this constant movement combined with the fact that these players are not professionals.
We got a couple things to talk about in that Florida versus Maryland game. First was just Angel Reese sulking in the stands all night, which was awesome. Awesome.
I mean,
she wants more money.
Was really watching Julian Reese. It's like, is he an amputee? I don't know if the guy has a right hand. I think he was only. It's like you watch him play, you would think it was legislated into the books. He could only play with his left hand.
Derek Queen's that guy for Maryland. Like as great as Reese was, like Derek Queen is the man.
He's the man offensively. What his defensive performance, rebounding performance, one of the laziest games that I've ever seen. He had to carry the load offensively, sure, but like I could make a case he was a net negative more than a net positive.
With that being said, though, do you think he cares? He's going to be a lottery pick. He's got to deal with Jimmy's Seafood. His coach is on the way out the door. He's going to the NBA. He's done.
I mean, did you hear what he said to the reporters after they beat Colorado State? Where they asked him, I don't even remember the question, but they basically asked him something about Kevin Willard, and he said, well, he's the man who pays us. Like that was the first thing he said. And the question was not about NIL. It was something like how do you keep it together? How do you have faith in the team? Whatever. And he says, oh yeah, well, he pays us. Like he's there for 1 year, get the bag, go to the NBA.
There were so many times when he was going like travel, like, trying to point to Florida. It's like, bro, you traveled. You shouldn't even be here right now.
Yeah, you traveled on the biggest shot of the tournament. If they called it, you wouldn't be here.
Kevin Willard, that was the most wild storyline going into a game. He was getting booed out of the team hotel, walking onto the bus to go to the arena. That's crazy. How do you come back now? Because, nothing's confirmed of him going to Villanova. How do you even think to come back to Maryland after how you were treated by your fan base?
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that plays a huge part in it. And I think if he's looking at it objectively, where all the reports are he is leaving for Villanova, and it's been decided before he's even finished out his tournament run, then he should understand why the fans would be upset.
Yeah, I mean, I would get it. But at the same time, too, he never came out and said anything. Like these were just false reports from half of them were parody accounts on Twitter. Some were, kind of real, but nobody knows what's going to happen. You look at these reports all over the place across every single sport. And I looked to Alex Bregman for the Boston Red Sox. When he got signed, he said 95% of what was being reported was not true. So I can't imagine in this case, 95% of it was true. I bet maybe 5 to 10% was true. But I think if Maryland gives Willard a deal, he's going to stay.
By the way, Tanner, what do you think of the jersey here?
The Raptors jersey, I like it. It's fire.
Little Vince Carter.
You're just trying to show off your tattoo. That's it.
That's not what I'm trying to do.
I've
had this thing for a long time. I recorded a podcast with my buddy earlier in the week, and I broke out a Ray Allen jersey because I wanted to. I like to think I have a nice jersey collection, but I was looking through the players, and I was like, a lot of these guys are not great college players. So I went with the Ray Allen one because I wanted to pick the best college player I have, and I thought it was only appropriate to do the same here. So Vince Carter was just kind of the clear standout of my college players as far as my jersey collection goes.
I got to get the jersey collection coming back now that baseball is here. Boston Red Sox 1-0. Shout out to the Red Sox. Before we talk about anything else, though, I got one more stat for Kevin Willard. This kind of sums it up here. I was cooking on Twitter yesterday. Career record as a head coach, 335 and 248, 575 winning percentage. Tourney 7 times, 4-6 record. 2 of those wins have come this season. It's now actually 4-7 after the loss last night. He was at Seton Hall for 12 years. 12 years. Pretty bad resume. I don't even know how this guy became the talk of the coaching world.
That's like Rick Barnes. I forget his career record, and he's a very good regular season coach. He's 6-18 against the spread in the tournament.
Yeah. There's some guys that, one season makes a massive difference. Not saying he hasn't had good seasons. He was strong last year, but, moving forward, these guys get put on a pedestal after not doing a whole lot throughout their career, which is really interesting in the world of college basketball. We're living in NBA and even professional football, college football. Everyone wants a hot offensive coordinator in the NFL now that's been good for a year, which is wild to think.
Guys, if you are enjoying the content so far, and if you are a first time, a last time, a new listener, whatever, new viewer, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Tanner and I are going to be here throughout March Madness and beyond, and you don't want to miss out on what we got coming.
Yeah. Also, guys, we're cashing out on March Madness bets right now. Florida -6.5 free last night. Red Sox money line too, free yesterday. So make sure you guys go down the links in the description below. Check out WSN.com. Get all the promos. Caesars got one. BetMGM's got one. FanDuel's got one. Everyone's got a promo right now. You need to take advantage of it. So make sure you check that out in the link in the description below.
I had a nice finish to the day yesterday. I had Arkansas spread. I also had Arkansas money line. They obviously ended up losing, but shout out to good old Bet365 because Arkansas was up by more than 15 points, which means that early payout came through, and I got paid for an Arkansas money line even though they lost. So shout out to Bet365. Again, talking about the links and all that stuff, go to WSN.com, find the Bet365 promo codes. It'll help you get signed up there. I believe the deal right now is $150 in bonus bets, and you get things like the early payout. If you want to win bets that don't even actually win, you can go check them out there. I also had Arizona +9.5. Caleb Love is one of my favorite players forever. There's nothing this man can do to change my mind. Coming into this game, he'd averaged 15 points in his career against Duke in 9 games. In his last 8 games against them, he was shooting 33% from the field. Last night, he goes out with 35 points on 54% shooting. He had a solo 13-point run where he was the only source of offense for Arizona. And Duke scored 100 points, and they didn't cover. So shout out to Caleb Love.
Shout out Caleb Love. Shout out to Arizona. Played really hard last night overall.
I mean, that was a 3 or 4 point game with a couple of minutes left.
Yeah. They gave Duke everything Duke could handle, and that kind of made me feel a little bit better, as was Florida better if we do get that matchup. I think Florida can play with Duke no problem. I do think Duke's the better team, but Arizona proved last night, even though they gave up 100 points, that teams can play with Duke right now. And I think Alabama, if they start going nuclear from the field like they did against BYU, that's going to be a very tough matchup for Duke. I would rather be Florida playing Texas Tech in the Elite Eight than Duke playing Alabama.
Well, so here's the thing about Alabama. That was literally the best shooting game in the history of March Madness. So yep. Alabama can get hot, of course. Up until yesterday, nobody had ever gotten that hot. And I don't think Alabama's going to do that again. So I hear what you're saying. Arizona scored 93 points on Duke, gives you confidence teams can keep up with them. Duke in this Arizona game shot 60% from the field, 58% from 3, 85% at the free throw line. It doesn't matter if teams are keeping up with them. They will not lose if that's how they're going to be playing. So yeah, Arizona proved you can stay competitive, but Duke also showed 93 points on highly efficient shooting. Who cares? We can do better than that.
You also got to consider that Duke's not going to do that again.
I disagree because those buckets last night, they weren't tough shots. They weren't players getting crazy hot from 3. Cooper Flagg, and this ties in well to what we're going to transition to. Cooper Flagg was so unbelievably dominant in that game. For my money, and I've thought long and hard about this, I think that was the most impressive game that I've seen a player play in college. And I don't mean impressive as far as playing better than they could or rising to the occasion. I mean watching a player and saying, there's no doubt in my mind this is an all-NBA player who happens to be at the college level right now. And it wasn't anything super flashy, but he made the right play every single time. He has a career high in assists with 7, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 3 of 5 from 3. He was efficient. He got to his spots when it was time for him to take over. He did it when it was time for him to pass. He did that. He was throwing no-look passes, tons of alley-oops to Maluach. He's swatting shots. He had 3 blocks. I was astonished at how dominant he was. Not because I didn't know that he was a great player, but it was a man amongst boys. His teammates were great. Shout out to Concanoople, Tyrese Proctor, Maluwatch, all those guys. It still looked like 1-on-5 just because of how incredible Cooper Flagg was.
As good as he's been this season, this felt like a coming out party for him.
Yeah.
This was the game where he establishes himself as, again, he's player of the year. He's already that guy. But at the same time, too, when you shoot 60% from 3, 30 points, you make all the right passes, you grab rebounds, you shoot well from the free throw line, you literally do everything it took to win. Because, again, if Cooper Flagg doesn't put that performance together last night, Arizona has a chance to win this game. And that's where
I think about the end of the first half. This is 42-42 with less than 30 seconds left. And then Duke gets 2 threes. The second one being the Cooper Flagg pull up as time as the buzzer sounded. And there's a huge difference from a tie game to being down 6 going into the second half.
Yeah, from the logo too. Just something that took the energy out of the arena for Arizona fans last night. That shot was, at that point, I'm like, this one's over. I thought it was going to be close. Arizona was playing with them. They weren't going away. And credit to Arizona, they did not go away last night. But that shot was the one. It's like, all right, Duke's still going to win this game no matter how tight it is.
I'm still working on who I think my best NBA player comp for Flagg is, because he's kind of a tweener, in the same way that Paolo Banchero is a little bit. And I don't mean tweener as in physical stature. Like sometimes we say that about guys who, like say like a 6'7" center, like a Draymond Green. I don't mean it in that respect. I mean a tweener as in like he can do so much. And he's tall. He's too tall to be a 1 or a 2 guard, but it's 6'9", and just the way he plays, he's not quite a center. And is he a power forward? Well, in the modern NBA, power forwards are usually 3-point shooters, but he's got such a good inside game. Like, I'm not worried about him fitting at the next level. I'm just saying he's such a unique player compared to what we have in the NBA right now that's tough to find a comparison for him. I was reading a work by Kevin O'Connor. And he said 2 players came to mind. He said Scottie Pippen for one of them, and he had Andre Karolinko for the other. Now, I thought the Karolinko one was interesting because it's a guy who I don't know if he ever made an all-star game in his career. He was just kind of a very consistent, solid player. But when I think about it, he was one of the early guys who were a legit 5x5 threat, points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. You've had Wilt Chamberlain, you've had Akeem Olajuwon, and then you've had Andre Karolinko. Like he was one of those guys, even though he didn't hit the same heights as them. Bottom line, this is a very unique player, and I'm still trying to figure out how he projects into the NBA.
I think a little bit Kevin Garnett.
It's not a bad comparison.
I think a little Kevin Garnett in there, but Cooper Flagg's his own guy. Cooper Flagg's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's his own player if he continues to progress like he has.
So before the season started, I was hesitant to go that far because a lot of people were saying that. They're saying this is the next best American-born player. This is an NBA champion. This is an MVP, Hall of Famer. It's like, I don't know that I'm ready to go there just because that's unfair to say that about a high schooler anyway. But I was like, let's just calm down. He was sensational when he stepped onto Duke's campus, and he's gotten a lot better as this year has gone on. I can't imagine what he's going to look like when it's his full-time job just to play basketball. But again, that performance last night, you said it right. We all knew Cooper Flagg was brilliant, but that was still a coming out party because that went from a great player to a holy shit, this is a Hall of Fame NBA player.
Grant, it's their full-time job to play basketball. Let's not get it. They ain't going to class. Come on. Cooper Flagg has been on campus since, all right, so this summer, obviously, but he started classes in September. It's March. If I'm Cooper Flagg's daddy, I am saying you are dropping out of class at the end of the not even semester. Like, as soon as you guys win the championship or get knocked out of the NCAA tournament, you're going to pack up. You're moving out of your dorm room, moving out of your apartment or high rise, wherever he's probably living on NIL, and we're going out to California or Florida or wherever you want to train, and we are going to train for the NBA. Now, if Cooper Flagg said to you, Grant, you're his dad, picture you being Cooper Flagg's dad, and he goes, Daddy, I want to go back to Duke next year. What are you going to do? What are you telling him?
So it's funny you say it because I actually did want to approach this question. AJ Dibansa is the #1 recruit in high school right now. He got an $8 million NIL deal to go to BYU. And I want to see what is the salary? Was the salary for the top NBA draft pick? Because I want to see how that NIL compares. Let's see. For the 2024 season, the top player in the draft is expected to make about $12.5 million. So unless I can get, I'll say $10 million in NIL money, I'm going to the NBA. Now, with the way things are going, Cooper Flagg might get that. And I don't think he would ever do this, but let's just say hypothetically Duke comes to him and says, 8 million is crazy. We don't have that much, but we can give you 6, which to my knowledge would be the highest ever for basketball or for any sport aside from AJ Dibansa. If a school like Florida came to the table, it's like, we'll double it. We got 12 million for you. I would look at where things are standing in the NBA. I don't know if he has to declare before the lottery happens, but just look at the teams that are in contention for the top pick in the draft. And it would be worth having a conversation. Like, if I can make the same money, but I can avoid going to a team that regularly kills off the hopes and dreams of the top draft picks, maybe I'll stay in college another year.
Well, you can easily go the NBA and fade. Like, I look at Zion, and Zion and Cooper Flagg, 2 different players. Zion's been eating too much gumbo down in New Orleans.
He's skinny now. This is the lightest he's been in like 5 years.
All right. He was eating too much gumbo down in New Orleans. All right. So now we get to Zion kind of fading with a team that wasn't necessarily a front-facing team, right? Where you look at Jason Tatum coming out of Duke and he goes to the Boston Celtics and he becomes that guy because he plays for the Celtics. But if you stick Jason Tatum with one of the worst teams in the league, he wasn't going to be that guy. So for Cooper Flagg, I think it would help him, obviously, to go to a better team or a team that has a lot of potential. With that being said, it's not necessarily about that salary for the 10 or the 12 million, whatever they can get. It's about the longevity of a career, right? So he might get 12 million or 10 million to play in the NBA as a rookie, but that money is only going to increase and you're going to be a super max player and you have so much more earning upside. Where in college, there's no security. That deal is a 1-year deal. If you get hurt, something happens, you might lose that money long term. So I would say, Cooper, you are going to the league whether you win a national championship this year or not. And honestly, if I'm Duke, obviously they would want him back. But him going to the NBA helps them just as much because you get another dude in the NBA. You get people that want to come to Duke, and you can get those players for cheaper now. And you can probably build a bigger team because you're going to get more NIL collected by winning national championships, and then kids want to go there and be Cooper Flagg.
So let's stay right there because one thing that I agree with everything you said. Just to add to that, we have to keep in mind Coach K is not a Duke kid anymore. For a while, Roy Williams was UNC. Coach K was Duke. There's this institutional just stereotype and image that we have of these schools, and for good reason. But as the years go on, like we don't really look at Syracuse like we did when Jim Boeheim was there. As years pass and these legendary coaches add another year of separation between them and the school, your perception of that school is going to change. If John Shire, at 37 years old in his 3rd year, he's already got Cooper Flagg developed and ready to be the top pick in the draft. If he wins a national championship for Duke itself, that says, hey, we are not just Coach K. Coach K is the greatest college coach ever, but we are still succeeding without him. That really compounds onto what you're saying.
Yeah, I agree. But I still look at, it's funny. I look at North Carolina more as a Roy Williams team than I look at Duke as Coach K's team. I think John Shire obviously has elevated himself and he's become one of the better coaches in college basketball right now. Not saying North Carolina hasn't succeeded without Roy Williams. I mean, they were in a national championship game, but I still think John Shire is going to be one of the best young coaches in the sport. He could be an NBA guy too. I could see him taking the leap to go in the NBA at some point, just because of how he relates to the kids and probably his goals and aspirations as a coach.
So to look at the mock NBA draft, I forget the exact percentage breakdowns, but I believe the top 3 teams, or I should say the bottom 3 teams, all have an equal chance to get the number 1 pick. So those bottom 3 teams would be the Utah Jazz, the Washington Wizards, and the Charlotte Hornets. All 3 of those are terrible. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, like, if we were to talk about, I'm going to roll the dice in college another year and hope there's a better situation that opens up. Like, if Victor Wembanyama gets injured and the Spurs are down there, or I don't know, whoever you want to point to, if a star player gets injured and that team tanks, then okay, that's one thing. But if we're going to look at these three teams, the Jazz, the Wizards, the Hornets, think ahead a year. It's like, I could see them still being there next year. There's not a clear imminent upgrade coming to the team. That being said, I think all three teams are a little bit interesting. Utah has some pieces, and Danny Ainge was responsible for building the Boston Celtics largely into what they are today. The Wizards are playing better over the last month or so, and they've got a super young team. They'd probably still be bad even with Cooper Flagg, but they at least have some pieces in place where it's like, okay, I can see this coming together. And then the Hornets actually have the most talent of all of those teams. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams. It's just there's no sense of, nobody there has any idea how to win games. So Cooper Flagg going there would be a different challenge. Instead of being at a talent disadvantage, they'd be at a heavy cultural disadvantage.
I'd want to go to Hornets for sure, just because you have all that talent around you. And if somebody comes in and figures it out, especially, not like from a coaching perspective, front office perspective, whatever you want, whoever that leader comes in that turns it around, and then you add Cooper Flagg in, you're going to be in really good shape there. So I would want to go to the most talented team if I was Cooper Flagg. And also going back to staying in college, like you said, there's no guarantee that these teams aren't going to be the worst next year too. Like, if you get drafted first, the problem with it is you're going to go to a bad team, most likely. So you have a better chance of going to a bad team than you do going to a good team that just got injured and tanked. So Cooper Flagg's got to come out. And if I was him, I'd be hoping that it's Charlotte who picks me.
So just to go through, because we might as well, just to go through the teams at the top of the draft order. This is from Tankathon, but they don't change anything. They're just going by the record. Number one pick would be the Jazz. Then you've got the Wizards, the Hornets, the Pelicans, which I would certainly rather go to the Wizards or the Hornets over the Pelicans. The 76ers are there. That's obviously, they've got a lot of injuries. And if we're being honest, playing with Maxey and Paul George and Embiid and Quentin Grimes and Jared McCain, that would be desirable. But again, this is an injury sort of situation. You got the Brooklyn Nets, the Toronto Raptors, the Portland Trail Blazers. As far as if I'm looking for a career longevity perspective, I don't see a huge difference between any of those teams and the Hornets and the Wizards and the Jazz. I think they're all kind of in the same bucket.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, if we were doing a mock draft or a mock trade, let's mock up a trade. You're the Boston Celtics, Grant. You want Cooper Flagg on your team. You got a lot of pieces to give up. What are you giving up to get Cooper Flagg? What do you think a team would trade?
Well,
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Celtics would never do this, so I almost don't even really want to put an offer out there because they wouldn't break anything up. Really, the better trade, and I don't know if you've heard this, but apparently there are some people who are well positioned who are saying the Celtics want to make a run at Kevin Durant in the summer.
That's stupid. It's dumb. Who are they going to get rid of?
Well, Jaylen Brown, obviously. Jaylen Brown's up there.
Jaylen Brown. You got to give up another big piece.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give up a lot. You got to give up a lot of draft picks. The thing is, I just don't know how they would make it work. Phoenix is desperate because they don't own any of their draft picks through 2031. But Boston's picks aren't going to be good. I mean, they're basically going to be second round picks if they're winning titles or in the conference finals every year.
You got to give up Peyton Pritchard too, probably, because he's a dog.
You got to give up a lot. Okay, you got to give up a lot.
Give up. You probably got to give up KP.
Yeah, you got to give up. You got to send a translator with him. You got to send Al Horford and his wife. You got to send Peyton Pritchard and his ball handling off-season training routine. You got to send everything.
You got to send everything. So I don't necessarily like that. But anyways, Grant, Duke's not going to win a national championship. So Cooper Flagg, if you were hoping to win a national championship, you're not going to win one because the Florida Gators have arrived. Grant, watching the first half of the Florida versus Maryland game, I was getting angry. I was getting pissed off. Walter Clayton's playing freaking hero ball out there nonstop. That's all he does. He loves playing hero ball. Let me try to play like I'm playing, 3-on-3 in the park. And he comes out does not have a great, not saying just him. I mean, this entire Florida team didn't look great. Once Condon goes down with the ankle injury, they got out of sorts. They're turning the ball over. They were getting beat up a little more inside. I mean, they obviously dominated the rebounding battle last night, and that's the reason they won the game. But they still won the first half against a really good team by 2 points. They had an 11-point lead at one point. They squandered it. They found a way to come back. They come out in the second half. They play their game. Less turnovers, dominant rebounding, great shooting, dominant from three-point range. If the Florida Gators just do what they're capable of, I think overall they are the best team in this tournament. Not saying Duke isn't great. I think Duke not being battle tested is going to play a factor if we got into a game where Florida was playing well against Duke for a national championship.
So I just want to remind our audience that I picked Houston to win this entire thing. I picked Duke to lose to Arizona in the Sweet 16. I had the matchup correct. Huh?
You were close, honestly. It took a great game from Duke.
Well, I did make that pick in part because I thought Flagg wasn't going to be 100%. If I knew he was going to be 100% or 95%, whatever we're going to call it, I probably would have picked Duke. But no, Arizona did acquit themselves well. But the reason I'm saying all this is I have Houston, right? So obviously I'm not going to say Florida's going to win it all if I have Houston. And to my eye, Duke is the best team. I placed the Houston bet. I made the Houston pick under the assumption. So those are the two teams that I would put up there. Now, I think the way Florida plays when they're at their best is sensational. And they kind of did it against UConn, even though they only ended up winning by 2 points. It's like they really were not playing good at all. But if you go back and you look at the shooting splits, UConn shot 30% from the field. Florida was like 45. UConn was at 20% from three. Florida was at 30-something. Florida had more rebounds. Like they won every category of the game. And against Maryland, to me, they did what they needed to do. Maryland got 0 points off of the bench. We knew they were extremely reliant on that starting five. They weathered the storm in the first half, and they said, we know you guys are going to wear down. We know we're going to take over. If we just stick to our principles, we don't even have to go out and do anything crazy. We just got to stick to being the team that we are, and that's what they did, and that allowed them to win by 18 points, whatever it was.
And double-digit turnovers in the first half. But when they put up the stats at halftime, I'm like, well, this team's shooting 44% from the field right now. Like, this is actually a decent shooting night for them. But will they turn the ball over 10 times? Well, you can't win when you turn the ball over that many times. But they still do it. They've played really bad in the tournament at times, but they've clawed themselves out of holes. Like against UConn, they had nothing. Still won some key categories, obviously, but found a way to pull through when it mattered most. I think that's a huge testament to a team. But if they play like they did in the second half against Maryland, I really don't think there's any stopping this team. Elijah Martin's fantastic. Walter Clayton, when he is playing well, is fantastic. He still makes some dumb decisions. Like, I don't know if you saw the play last night where he just chucked the ball down the floor when they were up by like 8. Like, what are you doing, man? And then just like that, it becomes a closer game. Set your offense up a little bit, Walter.
Florida's awesome. I'm really not trying to take anything away from them. I've been thoroughly impressed. Actually, let me get the spread for their Texas Tech game because I haven't even looked at
6.5.
Oh, I'm ready to hammer that.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, credit to them for coming back, but boy, did they look terrible. And this is Arkansas. This is a team that got some of its best players back recently from injury, but because they just came back, they weren't playing like themselves. It's also a 10 seed, a team that was left for dead. If Florida comes out hot instead of poor and sloppy like they have against UConn, like they have against Maryland, Texas Tech's got no shot in the world in covering that.
No shot at all. I think 6.5 is a really fair number. And we're getting to a point in the tournament where obviously Arkansas covered 4.5 losing last night, but that 4.5 to 6.5 number, like I posted a video saying Florida minus 6.5. Everyone's like, it's going to be a close game. Well, 7 points is a close game in the NCAA tournament. Like, it's going to come down to free throws. Teams could be up 3 and then they end up winning by 10 in the last minute of the game just because of free throws and, teams rushing shots on one end and then they foul on the other end. So at this point, spreads, I'm almost taking them out of the equation here. Like, if you like Auburn against Michigan, you need to lay 8.5, but that game could be a 2-point game with a minute to go and Michigan could not cover that spread.
Yeah, I was terrified of that with that Arizona Duke game last night because we had like 40, 50 seconds left. Arizona was down 5. I was like, all they have to do is foul, miss a shot, foul, and they don't cover anymore.
Yeah, because free throws mean more than rush 3-point attempts on the other end when you're trying to get, back in a game. So I think Florida -6.5 will be a comfortable bet for the next round. Also looking at Duke against Alabama, Grant. I think Duke is going to win the game. That means I have to take them to cover, but I would not be surprised if Alabama goes nuclear from the field and they put together a winning performance, because it just means more in the SEC, Grant. It just means more.
I would be very surprised if Alabama wins that game.
I know Arizona.
I know Arizona did. Arizona had a sensational offensive game there. I think part of that was just how in rhythm Duke was as well. That I don't think they were almost playing their best defense because they knew they were playing their best offense and they didn't quite have to. But Duke is an elite defensive team. BYU was well below average. According to KenPom, they were twice as bad on defense as the next worst defense left in this tournament. So I do not see Alabama coming anywhere close to what they just did against BYU.
Well, I'm not saying they're playing an equal team, Grant, but Alabama has the qualities to beat them. You need to be able to go nuclear from the field. It doesn't matter who it's against. Mark Sears can make shots against anybody. We're giving Cooper Flagg all his flowers. Let me give Mark Sears some flowers here. 61% from the field last night, 34 points, 62.5% from three, 8 assists, 3 boards. Sears was fantastic. I don't care if it's against BYU. I don't care if it's against West Coast Community College. That's still a really impressive shooting night from the field. And if he brings that against Duke, we're going to see a nice little battle between him and Flagg.
And Sears had made 3 threes in his last 5 games. And then he goes out and does that.
Well, that game last night with Arizona showed me that teams can play with Duke. Now, Duke controlled the game. Duke won the game, but it took a great shooting night from Duke too. So if we get Alabama on a peak shooting night and Duke doesn't necessarily do what they did last night, again, Duke doesn't have to be bad to like they were great. If they were just a little worse last night, that's a really tight game. Worse being still a quality shooting night. So I think Alabama has the team to do it. I'm not going to take them. I will take Duke. But with that being said, if Alabama is in this game, I will not be surprised.
So both teams were really good against the spread. Alabama was 21-15, but Duke was actually 24-13 against the spread. Granted, a lot of those against the ACC. The over-under on this line is 174.5, basically the same as it was for Bama BYU, which easily went over. And despite it being so high, both Bama and Duke hit the over more times than they hit the under. So maybe we're going to get a 100-100 game. Maybe it's going to look like an NBA score.
Kind of has to, I think. For Alabama to win this game, it has to be a high-scoring game. If Duke's controlling the game, Alabama's not scoring. But if Alabama's in this game, they're probably putting up 100 points.
Probably, yeah. The main reason I would expect Bama to come down a bit is Duke has so much size everywhere on the court that they can afford to be much more up on their the player they're guarding on the perimeter. And if they get blown by, they have the size on the back end to take that away. BYU is we don't want to switch. We're going to keep everything in front of us. We'll even take a half step back further than we should, and we'll try to get a contest off. And of course, that means you can shoot it if you want, and Bama shot it, and they made everything they put up.
Yeah. So briefly, obviously, because this podcast comes out on Friday, these games are taking place on Friday, so we don't want to spend too much time on them because the lifespan's not going to be long. But Grant, look at the Michigan-Auburn game tonight. Michigan 8.5-point dog. I think a lot of people are counting out Dusty May. I think Janai Broom's last game was a little concerning for Auburn, and he is their team. They go how he goes. If he doesn't show up tonight, I think Michigan has the team to not only cover in this game, potentially win outright. I think that's much more of a tougher road for them. But with Danny Wolf, looks very good. Obviously, Vladislav Golden, their leading scorer. I think Michigan's going to be competitive tonight.
Yeah, I got Michigan covering the spread in this one. I think I might have gotten them at 9.5 on my sports book. Like you said, Janai Broom's the best player on Auburn, their leading scorer. He's only averaging 11 points per game in this tournament, and he's going against a front court with 2 7-footers in it. That's just a tough way, knowing that you're struggling. That's a tough way to try to get back on track going against 2 guys who are 7 feet tall. And he's tall, but he's still only 6'10", and he's one man versus 2 guys. So I'm going to take Michigan with the points. They've been playing really well. Even though they have not been shooting the 3, they've created 30 offensive rebounds in 2 games in this tournament so far. If they're able to do that again, it just make this game ugly, kind of like we say in cold weather playoff football games, like low-scoring, ugly games. I think that's what we get in this one, and Michigan covers.
Now, a bigger game to talk about, because I think this is the toughest game to predict on the slate tonight. Michigan State versus Ole Miss. Michigan State laying 3.5 points. I'm getting a lot of hate from the Spartans fan base and just people online because I said Michigan State can't make free throws. They can make free throws. They did not make them in the NCAA tournament. You know what means more to me? Making free throws in the NCAA tournament than making them in the regular season. And they were not good last weekend. If they play how they did against Bryant in the first half and they play how they did in their second game against New Mexico, they will lose tonight. That is confirmed. So do you think we get Izzo bouncing back, or do we get a bad Michigan State performance that they squander or win just on a last second shot? I don't know.
So this might be your toughest game to predict. This is my lock of the day. I am rolling with Sparty. Michigan State minus 3.5. Ole Miss has been playing so far above their capabilities. Their shooting splits from 2, from 3, way outperforming their season averages. Meanwhile, Michigan State allowed the lowest 3-point percentage in the country, less than 28%. They were top 3 in overall field goal percentage. They are an outstanding rebounding team, while Ole Miss is one of the worst rebounding teams in the country. Forget in this bracket. I see this as a double-digit win for the Spartans. I think they imposed their will. I know they did not play great in the tournament, but you've got a team that just has such a high floor because of the defense they can play, the way they can rebound, versus a team that is off to a sensational start, but is going to come back down to earth. If Ole Miss was named, if this was North Texas, and we looked at this matchup and we're like, oh, well, they shot 33% from 3 for the year. They're shooting 49% in this tournament. It makes sense why they won those first 2 games, but that's not going to happen again. I think that's exactly what happens in this game.
I'm going to get ripped apart in the comments on TikTok if Michigan State wins this game. I want them to win. I really do, but I'm going to get ripped apart because we got about 50, 60,000 views on those videos combined, and it's just hate comments towards me. So hopefully it's a win-win for me either way. I guess Michigan State wins. I keep a ticket alive. If they lose, I'm right. So Kentucky versus Tennessee, Grant. I think this is a game where a lot of people are taking Kentucky plus 4.5. If you like Kentucky, you might as well take them on the money line because Tennessee laying 4.5 points. I think if they do win this game, they're going to cover that because of free throws. Kentucky beat Tennessee twice this season. So that's why I think a lot of people are leaning towards Kentucky. They're playing very well right now. Tennessee's the better team, though, and I will be laying the points with Tennessee.
So, fun fact here. Kentucky it could become the first team in NCAA history to go 2-0 against a conference rival in the regular season and then beat them in the tournament all 3 times as an underdog. That's never happened before. I forget the exact number, but I want to say it's something like when conference rivals meet in the Sweet 16 since 2000 or whatever, the over is 11-2. Also, if I just look at these games, Kentucky in both of the games against Tennessee so far, they shot exactly 50% from the field, exactly 50% from the 3. So while Tennessee has this incredible defense, Kentucky has found success against them. Kentucky's also been shooting extremely well in this tournament, while Tennessee's best players, Chaz Lanier, Zakai Ziegler, they have been playing very well in this tournament so far. So if I were forced to pick a side, I think I would go with Tennessee, but my favorite play is actually going to be the over. Again, kind of just for all the reasons I laid out right there.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's sharp on your part, Grant. And then Houston versus Purdue. I think Houston's going to smack Purdue minus the 8.5 here. I don't really care what Purdue's done so far in this tournament. I think Houston defensively, obviously they have it this year and they have the offense. And that's the biggest thing that they've just been lacking, as we've talked about a lot on this show. So I think Houston minus 8.5. I think this game will look very similar to what Florida did against Maryland. It will be one where it's men against boys. As long as you can limit what Purdue does on the perimeter, you're going to be fine. I mean, their 2-point defense is just horrendous. So I think Houston's going to be able to rip them up in the paint and then the mid range. And if they do that, I see them having no issues covering 8.5. I also like the first half at minus 5.5.
Yeah, the spread on this, I want to say opened at 7 or 7.5. So you're getting some movement in Houston's way. Maybe a little late to jump in on Houston, but honestly, I would still take them at this line. Either Ole Miss or Purdue is the worst team left in this field. You can debate on who you think it actually is.
Purdue.
I wouldn't blame you if you say that. I originally thought Ole Miss, but I'm reconsidering it. Point is, I'm taking Houston. They're significantly better. They're better on offense. They're better on defense. They're better at rebounding. The only, I guess, source of concern, especially on a large line like this, is that Trey Kaufman-Renn averages 20 points per game. He's Purdue's leading scorer. And in the last round against Gonzaga, Graham Ike scored, forget exactly how many, but like 26, 27 points, whatever it was. So he was really good. But then again, he also had Ryan Nembhard, who's the nation's leader in assists, feeding him the ball. Braden Smith's a great player, but he's not quite that level of a playmaker. Also, in Kelvin Sampson's time at Houston, the under is something like 13-4 in a game immediately following one in which Houston gave up 70 points. So basically what I'm saying is when Houston's defense isn't locked into the level that we associate them with, there's like a mental refocusing, and they come out with their hair on fire on defense and say, forget offense, you're just not going to score in this game. So it's dangerous to lay a lot of points and look at the under, but those are probably still my two favorite plays.
So assuming we get Florida, Auburn, Houston, and Duke, we get 4-1 seeds, because I think that's probably the most likely route right now. That would be unprecedented a little bit, but at the same time too, Grant, when you look at Houston versus Duke, are you sticking with your Houston pick, or are you going to go back to Duke?
Give me 1 sec, actually. I just want to look, how many times have all 4 1 seeds made the Final Four? Because
I think it's like two. I think it's like two since 2000, maybe. I don't know. I could be totally off with that.
This would be the second time. The first time happened in 2008 when Kansas, Memphis, North Carolina, and UCLA were all in the Final Four.
The only upset, I mean, there are a few upset possibilities on the board, but it's more likely that we're going to get 4-1 seeds in the Final Four. So it'd be pretty impressive. But if we get Houston versus Duke, I think if for me at least, if we get Houston versus Duke, I'm going to take Duke, no matter what the spread is. I don't know about you as somebody who picked Houston pre-tournament, though.
Yeah, I should be able to figure out a way to hedge them from a betting perspective, because I got Houston at plus 750. And if we go over, I know I already have a positive cash out, but if we go over to FanDuel, they're at plus 600, which honestly I'm surprised that isn't lower. I thought they would have been in the fours by now. I'm sure there's a way to hedge them against each other, still make a profit. I would take Duke to win that game. I think they're very even, except the big differences are Houston is actually a pretty poor 2-point shooting team. That's like their one weakness. Duke, I want to say, is third in the country in 2-point defense, either third or fifth. And Duke obviously has the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Houston does not have that guy. So those are key differences, and that's probably why I think Duke would be the pick there. But we'll see how the next round goes. We'll see if they both get there, and then we can come back and reevaluate.
Yep, we're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about in the shows coming up, guys. So make sure you smash that subscribe button, like the show, comment on the show, tell us who you're picking. Tell us if Michigan State is good. Are they a good 2 seed? Let me know in the comments, and we will answer all those in the next show.
They are a good 2 seed, by the way. That's the answer.
No, they're not. They're not a good 2 seed. Not as bad as St. John's as a 2 seed, but I would not call them a good 2 seed right now. To be a good 2 seed, you got to get to the Elite 8. To get to Sweet 16 doesn't do anything for me, especially with their road.
Yeah, by the way, let St. John's be a lesson moving forward, because I said this when we were filling out our brackets in the first place. You can't win with your offense being that bad. You just can't do it.
Well, they did, though, in the Big East. They still won. But
in
when
the regular season, you can't tell me Michigan State's regular season free throws don't matter.
No, I agree. I think Michigan State won in the regular season, but people are like, oh, recency bias. Well, guys, what did they do when it mattered? Their last 3 games, they lost to Wisconsin in a game that they were controlling. They lost, or they beat Bryant in a game they did not come out in the first half. Okay, you're playing against a mid-major basketball program. You're going to be able to come back in the second half. And then they obviously beat New Mexico in a game that could have been a lot closer than it was. So I look at recency bias. I look at their last 3 games. They're 2-1. They've played bad in all 3 at times, and that's not something to look forward to going into Ole Miss tonight.
They also had an 8-game win streak just before that where they beat 6 ranked teams.
Great. But what have you done in your last 3? You were really bad from the free throw line your past 2. So they got to figure it out tonight. And again, Ole Miss has, you talk about Ole Miss being this bad team. Well, if Ole Miss puts the pressure on them early and can continue to do what they've done from the field, that takes Michigan State out of their rhythm.
Spartans minus 10.5.
I don't think so. I want to be right. Grant, I want you to be right. I want people to just rip me in the comments, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, whatever does happen, Tanner and I are going to be here breaking it down. So as we've said before, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so that you are locked in for everything we post on this channel. Jump in the comments, let us know who you're betting on this weekend. Is Cooper Flagg the best college player you've seen? Is he better than Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson? Some of these guys, go throw it all in the comments. We'll be reading and responding to everybody.
So we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Ride the Line.